Jose Mourinho has sent a private message to Jude Bellingham, not through the media, not through a press conference, through tactics. And what that message says is going to shock you, because the man who once compared Bellingham to Frank Lampard, the man who said he loves everything about him, has now arrived at Real Madrid and told Bellingham something nobody expected. You are not the star of this show anymore. You are the warrior, the engine, the box-to-box machine who makes everything else work, not the main man, the warrior. And if you think that is not a bombshell, if you think Jude Bellingham, a player who opened his arms to 80,000 people at the Bernabeu after every single goal in his first season, is simply going to accept that without this whole situation becoming something enormous, then you have not been paying attention to what is happening inside Real Madrid right now. I am Robert, and today we are going deep into the most explosive situation in European football. Mourinho, Bellingham, Vinicius, Mbappe, one dressing room, one manager who answers to nobody, and a season that will define every single one of them. Subscribe if you have not already. Turn on notifications. Because this story is only just beginning. Let's go. Let me start with the tactical bombshell, because this is where everything begins. Mourinho's preferred system is a 4-2-3-1. He used it successfully at Real Madrid from 2010 to 2013. He trusts it more than any other formation in football. And in that system, in Mourinho's world, the roles are not suggestions, they are laws. Mbappe and Vinicius Junior, the two bullets in the counterattacking system. The forwards, the match winners, the players, the entire team is built to serve. Arda Güler, the creative mind behind them, the one who links play and provides the spark in the final third. And Bellingham slots in as the engine, the box-to-box midfielder, the player who does the dirty work that makes the whole machine function. Drop deep when defending, close central lanes, press relentlessly, and then arrive late into the box to attack cutbacks and second balls. Now on paper that sounds fine. On paper that sounds like a genuine role for a player of Bellingham's quality. But here is what that means in practice. Bellingham did not leave Borussia Dortmund and sign for 103 million euros at Real Madrid to be a box-to-box workhorse in a double pivot. He came as the guy, the number 10, the one who the entire attacking system revolved around, the one who scored 23 goals in his debut season and made the whole of European football stand up and take notice. He came as the player who opened his arms wide at the Bernabeu after every goal and made you feel like he owned that stadium, like he was born to play there, like Real Madrid had finally found the next great Galactico after Ronaldo. And now Mourinho is arriving and saying, through his formation, through his system, through his squad plans, that version of Bellingham needs to evolve. Or else. Drop a comment right now. Honestly, can Jude Bellingham thrive as Mourinho's warrior midfielder? Or does this role limit what he can become? Tell me below. Now, before we go further into the Bellingham situation specifically, we need to understand the absolute state of Real Madrid before Mourinho arrived, because this context is everything. Without it, you cannot understand why Mourinho has been given the authority to walk in and reframe the role of a player who cost over 100 million euros, 3 coaches in under 2 years, Carlo Ancelotti, Xabi Alonso, Alvaro Arbeloa, 3 different managers, 3 different approaches, the same result every single time. A dressing room that ate them alive. Ancelotti left with the cracks already showing. Xabi Alonso arrived as the sentimental favorite, a Madridista, a legend, a man the fans worshipped before he took his first training session, and the dressing room destroyed him within months. Players pretending to fall asleep in tactical meetings. Vinicius Junior publicly showing his frustration when substituted at El Clasico. Senior players whispering and laughing while the manager was speaking. Xabi Alonso literally said at one point, I did not realize I had walked into a nursery. The manager of Real Madrid describing his own squad, a nursery. And Arbeloa came after that, the emergency option, thrown in at the deep end before he was anywhere near ready. And the result? A physical confrontation on the training ground between Tchouaméni and Valverde, actual fists, in front of coaches and staff at Real Madrid, the most decorated club in the history of European football. 2 seasons, 0 trophies. Barcelona won La Liga. Arsenal and Bayern knocked them out of the Champions League in consecutive years. The fans booed their own players at the Bernabeu. Vinicius, the player they built their entire attack around, was the main target of his own supporters' frustration. This is what Florentino Perez looked at and decided the solution was Jose Mourinho. And Mourinho did not arrive quietly. He did not arrive with handshakes and press conference platitudes. He arrived with a blueprint, a demand for 6 new signings, a complete overhaul of the coaching and medical staff, his entire backroom team from Benfica walking through the door. And sources confirmed there is now a climate of uncertainty and tension at Valdebebas as staff await developments, with some people genuinely fearing for their jobs. This is not a new manager appointment. This is a corporate takeover. And every single player at that club, Bellingham, Vinicius, Mbappe, all of them felt it the moment it was confirmed. Now let me talk about the elephant in the room, the situation that nobody is quite sure how to handle. Mourinho and Vinicius Junior. Because before Mourinho was ever Real Madrid's manager, these 2 men already had history, and it was not good history. In the Champions League knockout phase at Benfica, Vinicius scored and celebrated by dancing in front of the corner flag. Benfica's forward, Gianluca Prestiani, allegedly made a racist comment toward him during the reaction. Vinicius accused Prestiani directly. His teammates, Mbappe and Tchouaméni, backed him up immediately. And Mourinho, as Benfica's manager, did not defend Vinicius, did not condemn the alleged abuse. Instead, in the aftermath, he insinuated that Vinicius had brought the reaction on himself through his celebration. He told Vinicius directly, when you score a goal like that, you just celebrate and walk back. And then he said something that drew fury from across the football world. He said, when he was arguing about racism, I told him the biggest person in the history of this club was black. This club, the last thing that it is racist. He never truly apologized. He never walked those comments back, and the damage was done. And now, just months after all of that, Jose Mourinho is Vinicius Junior's manager. The man who questioned how Vinicius responded to alleged racial abuse is now the man who decides whether Vinicius plays on Saturday, whether Vinicius is in the starting 11, whether Vinicius gets the system that suits him or the system that constrains him. Reports confirmed that both Mourinho and Vinicius have been in contact since the fallout and are ready to start with a clean slate. And I want to believe that. I genuinely do. But clean slates in football have a very specific way of getting dirty very quickly when results start to slide and pressure builds and someone needs to be blamed for something. Mourinho's history with combustible players is not a mystery. It is well documented. And Vinicius Junior, one of the most electric and most combustible players on the planet, is exactly the kind of personality that Mourinho's system either harnesses brilliantly or destroys completely. There is very rarely a middle ground with this manager. And here is the contract complication that makes everything even more unstable. Vinicius' deal at Real Madrid expires in 2027. Talks over a new contract have been stalled since November. His reported salary demands of around 30 million euros per season have not been met. And now a new manager has arrived whose relationship with Vinicius is complicated at best and explosive at worst. Vinicius himself has said publicly, I have never imagined myself away from Real Madrid. And that matters. That is a man who wants to stay. But wanting to stay and actually staying are two completely different things when the new manager asks you to become someone you are not. Now back to Bellingham, because I need to give you the full picture of where his situation actually stands right now. His first season at Madrid was genuinely one of the greatest debut campaigns any foreign player has ever had in La Liga. 23 goals, 13 assists, league title, Champions League, La Liga Player of the Season, third in the Ballon d'Or, in the FIFA World 11 for 3 consecutive years, at 20 years old. Numbers that belong in a museum. But his second and third seasons told a much more complicated story. Shoulder surgery that cost him the start of the 2025-26 campaign. Coming back into a dressing room already on fire. Getting caught in the middle of the political war between the squad and Xabi Alonso. And then the Benfica match, the 4-2 loss, where he went to the microphone and said publicly what the dressing room had been feeling in private. That his teammates do not do basic things right, despite being talented. In those second and third seasons combined, his goal total barely matched what he scored in his debut season alone. The production dropped. The performances became inconsistent. The shoulder, the chaos, the dressing room politics, all of it took its toll. And now Mourinho arrives and says, I am going to reframe you. I am going to put you in a system where you are not the main man. You are the warrior. And I am going to surround you with a double pivot that protects you from defensive responsibility and lets you arrive late and be devastating. Here is where it gets genuinely interesting, because the Mourinho argument for Bellingham is actually quite compelling when you look at it without emotion. If Mourinho signs a defensive midfielder of Rodri's profile, and Rodri from Manchester City is reportedly his dream solution for that, number 6 role, then Bellingham is completely freed from defensive duties in the pivot. He can do what he does best. Burst forward, arrive late, score goals, create chaos in the box. He becomes the player everyone fell in love with in his debut season, but in a structure that makes him harder to man mark and harder to neutralize than when he was operating as a static number 10. The Lampard comparison Mourinho made back in 2021 suddenly makes complete sense in this context, because Mourinho's Lampard was not a free-roaming 10 who drifted into pockets whenever he felt like it. Mourinho's Lampard pressed from midfield, tracked back, won second balls, and then arrived late into the penalty area at exactly the right moment to score goals that felt inevitable. Brilliant, but disciplined brilliant. And that is precisely the version of Bellingham that Mourinho wants to resurrect. Whether Bellingham accepts that reframing, whether a player who has been marketed as the next great Galactico since he was a teenager is willing to become the warrior in someone else's system, is the question that will define his entire career at this club. And there is one more layer to this that I find absolutely fascinating. The captaincy question. Carvajal is leaving. The armband is available. And Mourinho, a man who uses the captaincy as a political tool as much as a football one, has a decision to make that will tell you everything about who he trusts most in that dressing room. The traditional line at Real Madrid is seniority. Courtois and Vinicius would be in line based on experience and time at the club. But could Mourinho hand it to Bellingham? Could he make the English midfielder his captain and send the clearest possible message to the entire squad? This is my guy. This is the standard I expect, and everyone else follows his lead? Giving Bellingham the captaincy would not just be a football decision. It would be a political statement. It would say to Vinicius, to Mbappe, to every player in that dressing room, I am starting fresh, and I am choosing my own man to lead this. And if that happens, if Bellingham gets the armband, then the warrior role suddenly looks very different. Warriors with armbands are not demoted. They are the foundation that everything is built upon. Mourinho begins preseason on the 13th of July. The clock is already running. And when he steps onto that training pitch for the first time, he will be walking into a squad where the political lines are already drawn before he has kicked a single ball in management. Vinicius needs a contract. Mbappe needs the stadium back on his side. Bellingham needs a resurgence. Mourinho needs trophies. His last major trophy was the Conference League with Roma in 2022. And for a man who built his entire identity around winning the biggest prizes, that gap is painful. And Florentino Perez needs all of it to work simultaneously at the most demanding club on the planet. Any one of those things failing could bring the whole project crashing down. And at Real Madrid, things have a habit of failing all at once. But here's what I keep coming back to. Mourinho chose this. He could have gone anywhere. He was at Benfica, he had options. He could have waited for a different job. He chose Real Madrid. He chose this chaos. He chose this dressing room full of political complexity and fractured relationships and enormous egos and unresolved contract situations. And he chose it because he believes he can fix it. He has fixed impossible situations before. He turned a Madrid team that could not get past the round of 16 in 6 consecutive years into 100-point La Liga champions. He has walked into dressing rooms that were falling apart and made them into winning machines through sheer force of personality and tactical brilliance. Whether he can do it again with this squad in this moment, with these specific personalities, is the greatest football question of the 2026-27 season. Bellingham has the talent. He has the mentality. He has the big game personality that Mourinho admires. The question is not whether Mourinho rates him. The question is whether Bellingham can accept the cage that Mourinho's system puts around him and turn it into the greatest season of his career. And the answer to that question, we will find out together, right here, every step of the way. Comment below. One question. Does Mourinho unlock the best version of Bellingham, or does this system limit what he can become? Tell me. I want every opinion in that comment section. Subscribe if you have not already. Notifications on. Because Real Madrid under Mourinho is going to be the most watched, most talked about, most dramatic story in world football this season. And we're going to be here for every single moment of it. See you in the next one.